Hi, Carmine. How you doing, buddy? How you doing there, little buddy? Yeah. Hey there, Jay. You're muted. I'm not sure if that's.
There we go.
There we go. The doorbell rang again. I'm not sure who.
Probably Bob or Laura.
There she is. Hi, Laura.
Sorry for the delay. I was just finishing dinner.
I sent you a quick email. I wasn't sure if I started just some stray random meeting or actually started the one that was planned.
This is the one. This is the one.
Is there a new email? I went back to the old email.
Yeah, I looked at it. I went ahead and went to Zoom and clicked on as one of the hosts. And I don't get to vote, I understand, but I could live with that. I've already voted.
Yes, if you want, you can change your name by clicking, hovering over your video window and clicking the three dots. You can rename yourself if you want to put your actual name there. I just did that. Justin is in the waiting room. Should we admit him or should we test the poll first?
Oh, well, that was a good question, but I inadvertently admitted him. Welcome.
Oh, no worries.
But why don't we go ahead? At that part of the meeting, Laura, I thought I would just say, after announcing who the nominees are, that Laura will start the vote process. And that would be your signal to do whatever it is that you do.
All right, and it's about 2 clicks. Did you prefer the poll with the 10 questions or the poll with just the 2 questions?
The 2 questions.
The 2 questions. And did we have someone nominated for treasurer yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I talked with Katie about that, and she's thinking about it, but I haven't heard back. So.
Okay. I can always edit the poll on the fly right now. I have the window up and ready to go.
Okay.
So if she does not make a decision by tonight, we probably don't want to pressure her online, but we could open it up, see if anybody else jumps in.
I wasn't going to mention her name. I was just going to say we're working on it. And anybody interested.
Right. If somebody wants to jump in, I'm sure she would be more than happy to let that happen.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Hi, Justin and Bob. We're doing a quick test run on the election process.
Justin's muted.
So is Bob.
Do I vote by raising my hand?
Well, you know, I thought about that afterwards, but Laura's already put so much work into it. I figured let's do it the cool way.
Let's do it right.
It was no work at all. It was very easy.
So this is the recommendation of the nominating committee. And at this point, we'll turn the election process over to Laura Andrew.
Laura, how was the pot making session?
Oh, it was very fun, very fun. Sorry, I just opened the polling information and it says you are logged in from another device. Your polling session is inactive. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Another
Another
device.
device. So that could mean a couple of things. Let me check one thing.
Would that be
So it's either because I was logged on through my web browser or maybe because we have multiple people on the same one. Mark, do you see polls at the bottom of your screen?
No. I just see five people, including myself. That's it.
Let's be on right within Zoom.
I have
Yes,
polls.
Can you click on it and see what the message says to you?
I'm ready to vote. I can voting for president, vice president, recording secretary, communications and marketing. Yeah, it's working for me.
I wonder if you have to be like a co-host to see it. We have.
Well,
Weird, okay.
I'm a co-host and I don't see anything.
Don't see it.
No.
I'm gonna pop off the call and jump back on really quick.
Okay. Now I can see reading from left to right. I have, do I need to let Laura in?
It's like
I
Laura's
got
back
it.
on.
Cool. I guess it was just because I was logged on in my web browser. It was not happy about that.
So I've lost it. I now have your error message. Thank you.
Interesting. I have somehow mysteriously taken control. So I don't think Zoom is necessarily set up to have multiple people log onto the same account, is what I think maybe part of that is. So
Well, kick us out.
you would need to log on to Zoom with a personal Zoom account, not the AABS email. But this
So
is fine.
the link that we promoted, will work for everyone else except for people who are co-hosts.
Not exactly. It's just the polling feature itself doesn't really know what to do when there's multiple people logged on from the same account. So I think as long as I am the last one that comes on the call through the AABS Zoom, I'll have control of the poll. If not, someone else can do it. Also, it's very easy. All you have to do is click launch poll.
And I don't see it. I am not seeing it on my screen.
Okay, so if you want, I can just, how about I launch the poll right now? So you guys see the poll pop up on your screen?
I do now see it.
I'm not sure what it will look like for Mark and Bob because again, they're on the same account as me, but you should see the poll.
I don't see anything.
I only see two choices and I don't see a way to scroll down to others.
Yep, so we decided to move it instead of having so many questions, just have a yes or no vote on the whole ballot. But there is a character limit for each question, so I had to separate it into two questions.
Gotcha.
So I put the two directors in the second question and everyone else in the first question. But I have the second poll ready, or the other one with the 10 questions and 10 positions, so I can switch to that one if you guys prefer.
If we have somebody jump up and wants to be treasurer, you could go to the other.
I can type their name in online and do
Yeah.
that.
Okay, or you could type it in here and then we just vote on that. Okay,
Now,
all right.
Bob,
Is that all?
Bob, you,
Okay.
you now reflect your own name and not AABS. Do you see the poll?
I do not, no.
So because you guys are logged on to Zoom with the login that I use to create the poll in the meeting,
Mhm.
you won't probably see it.
Yeah. Well, I'll abstain unless I need to be a tiebreaker.
You know, I think that would be unprecedented.
See, this is 2020.
That's true.
Justin, do you see the poll on your screen?
I-
Yeah, it came up when it was open.
Did it look okay, Justin?
It looked fine.
Okay.
So are we going to vote first and then do the slideshow, or what's the order?
I was thinking we would, Bob. Just do a couple of remarks. And even though I wrote that note to be read last time, just thank the departing board members and then launch right into the nominating committee, do the poll, and then turn it over to you to MC the winterizing techniques.
MC Bob.
Bob's not the MC. Bob is the slide advancer.
I don't know to what degree there'll be a lot of emceeing that will need to be done, other
Yeah.
than introducing the program and saying, okay, Bob started, and whoever's pictures come up first, okay, talk about your setup, and we're open for questions.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
forgot who's first.
And I think it'll be, it'll
Oh.
kind of run itself, I think.
Now I don't know what, I'm not sure Dana's going to be able to be here.
Correct. That's
So
what
I don't know much about his setup, so we may just have to advance through those quickly.
Hmm.
might be possible to comment briefly on it or make observations, but yeah. I guess we could say, if you got questions, contact Dana.
Yeah. Well, that sounds good.
There's Chris.
Chris.
Let's see. Laura, I just want to be sure here. I see that on, I've got my green share screen. I'm assuming all I have to do is click on that, and let me try it here.
Yeah, let's just test it out.
Okay, you should be seeing my, you see a big overwintering?
There
I
it is.
do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also seeing your bar at the top. Are you in slideshow mode or?
I don't know. Let's see. I just made it full screen.
Right.
How's that look?
It's full screen, but I'm still seeing your bar at the top says PowerPoint slideshow, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
So are you in
does,
slideshow mode or the? No.
let's see. I'm going to go to slideshow from the beginning,
Okay.
and I guess you get to see my.
You can see that little bar at the top. It's not a big deal. I just wondered, I'm not used to seeing that.
Yeah.
Slide 1 of 44.
Yes.
See, I'm not used to seeing those. That's at the bottom.
It must be something peculiar to all my laptops because I usually see them. So It's probably how I have my default set up.
Are you in presenter mode or?
Well, let's see here. Slideshow. Set up slideshow. I am browsed by an individual window.
Okay,
How
okay.
about presented by a speaker at a
Yeah,
full
try that.
screen mode? And slideshow from the beginning.
And they're gone.
Wow, magic.
How about that?
Someday it'll go away. Okay. All right, so stop share. Just like that, okay.
Boom.
So Ron is first. Molostin is the first 3 slides.
Yeah. So we're starting to get some folks in. I had to buy a new laptop in order to try to import files for using the 3D printer, but I decided not to add that complication to the mix tonight. I'm just way over my head right now on trying to learn new things computer related, and wanted to stick to something easy like this little iPad.
Yeah. What comes after cats and dogs, though?
Facetiously, the Eiffel Tower comes next.
Oh, that's right. You said that.
But what I want to do, Bob, is make a new type of plant marker for serious plant collectors that don't want to have all their tags raked up in the fall or stepped on and broken as you're stepping through the beds to do whatever. And before getting 10,000 of these made at a plastic extrusion plant, I want to make a few myself and just get them out there and test them. And if it turns out to be a good idea, then I'll invest the money in a big bunch of them. And if it's a dog idea, I can still make plastic dogs.
Now you've had this idea for quite a while.
It has been, and it's been a little slow getting off the ground with one thing and another, but I have a sister who has been working with 3D printers at Caterpillar for maybe 10 years, and a nephew who is a computer engineer, and he actually has, he took my idea, improved the design, and sent it to my sister, who printed some up for me, and we've tweaked it a little bit further, and so he's got the new design ready to go. And
What's going to be so different about yours?
they will not stick up like tombstones. The traditional, they call them rose markers, that hosta gardeners have used for decades, have that nice handy little loop on them that rakes will catch. And the whole thing, I've got so many of those rose markers out in our big compost pile where I take all the leaves I rake up. I ought to start a recycling bin out there. And smaller ones, they just, those little plastic, like 6-inch white plastic tags stick up in the ground. And I wind up snapping a lot of those on because I have sort of big feet sometimes in small garden areas. So we'll try it out and see how they work. And now I have a plastic cat too. I'm well on my way to.
Well, you need another cat.
That's right.
It'll
I
be a
needed
lot
another
cheaper.
cat.
It'd be
Well,
a
you
lot
won't-
cheaper, yeah.
You won't have to
That's
take
right.
it to the vet. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, this one doesn't require neutering or feeding.
So do your markers stick up above the ground or?
No,
Okay,
No, that's the whole premise. In fact,
So they will also be less unsightly.
Well,
exactly.
they'd be underground. You got to dig up your plant to find them unless they can hover somehow. Where else are they going to be?
Well, you could do that, Ron. I thought about that. A lot of the serious plant collectors will make two tags. One, which they always put in the same spot relative to the crown, either in front or back at the 3 o'clock spot, whatever that gardener picks. So they always know when they go out to a plant, they can dig down in the soil to find the marker with the botanical name on it. And then they'll have another one that sticks up for visitors to see. And when we were on a lot of tours, those signs sticking up was an okay idea. You know, people could read the label for themselves. But we're not doing a lot of tours anymore. And I would just as soon have it out of sight, but know where it is so I could brush the mulch away and say, oh, okay, that's which one it is.
So Mark, the next step is to invent one of these that will hide in a bonsai pot so that I can identify, especially my accent plants that I always lose the tags for, and I have no idea what they are.
That's not a bad idea. Just scale the whole thing down a little bit.
Yeah, with little tiny writing.
It might be, Becky is tried to convince me for years that I should use a P-touch marker instead of just handwriting. Of course, she's seen my handwriting for 40 years, so there's a reason for that. And I might do that just to make the whole thing a little bit cleaner.
So what kind of marker?
It's a P-touch, I think, a brother. It spits out a little plastic label, and they apparently make some which are UV resistant.
Right, the nurseries use.
Yeah. But I've always taken the more casual approach and just handwritten, and that usually means I'm the only one that can read it. So
Especially after it fades, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I take the casual approach of, oh, that's some kind of hosta.
Yeah, that's the green one with white edges. So well, it looks like we have a lot of folks here. Everybody, almost everybody is muted at this point. I don't know, can I unmute from here?
You should be. Go up in the corner of your picture and hit unmute.
I saw the opportunity to mute.
Right.
That's
That's the
just
only
me.
chance you get. You had a choice and now it's
Yeah,
two.
I was just one.
Yeah. You got to
Meeting.
change your name. You're just AABS Bonsai. You still that.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Ah. You find, well, you don't need to unmute. You're still talking.
Dana, I thought you weren't going to be able to be on tonight.
I am here.
Nice.
We see that.
I took the night off from the haunted house. I got the other guys running it tonight, so I'm here.
So you can
Excellent.
talk about your pictures.
So the individual needs to hover over their picture and hit unmute, or if they want to temporarily unmute, they can hold down the space bar if they just want to temporarily talk. Then when they lift that up, then they'll be back muted.
Right.
So you can't unmute other people. They have to hover over their thumbnail and unmute it themselves.
Well, I like that space bar idea. I just tried it. That's cool.
That's a good thing to know about. Yeah.
It's something very simple. I think Mark will handle that one pretty good.
So as the host though, can the host unmute everybody?
I think that's up to the individual to mute or unmute themselves.
I think the host can mute everybody.
I saw a message that said the host
can
would like you
mute.
to unmute.
Yes, I hit ask all to unmute, and it tells me that I could mute everybody,
Right.
but it didn't give me the option of unmuting everybody. And Ron, I look forward to the day when I have a space bar and I can try that. Even this,
Well, you'll just have to print one.
that's right. This new little laptop, I had forgotten what it was like not to have a touch screen. It's got that little pad there where you move the cursor around, and that's like the old days.
I've still got a rodent here.
They gave me a mouse pad with it. I said, what the heck is this for? You use that to untighten those stuck lids. So I guess I'll have to, all sorts of things I'm going to learn. So we certainly had a beautiful day today. I did not get into the
Finally.
green.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was really nice.
we drove out to Hidden Lake Gardens and looked around. It's still pretty nice out there. And of course, a lot of things are, most everything there is still closed. The bonsai garden is closed. I did peek over the fence and take some pictures over the fence, and the trees are looking okay. Diane's doing a good job. I mean, all by herself, I guess, keeping things going. It appears that they have a video security system now, which means somebody will have pictures of me prowling around the bonsai garden. So if anything goes missing tonight, I'm in trouble.
Okay. Before we begin the meeting, I wanted to ask Mary if you could move your screen again to show the stained glass window that was up behind your left shoulder, I think it was.
Oh,
Very nice.
yeah.
Okay, that looked so much like, I made one for a friend's wedding, 35 years ago, and it's a little bit different, but when I just got a glimpse of that, when you were first checking in, I thought, is she at their house? But no, it's different. Thank you.
Well, there's Jack.
Hey.
Hi, Jack.
Hello.
How are you?
Jack.
Okay.
Good.
Nice to see you got on first try, Jack. That was that was kind of easy.
You're a little hard to hear, Jack.
Again.
Laura, where's Will?
Just to work tonight, unfortunately.
Oh, man.
Nice to be kept, huh?
It's getting to be that holiday season time.
Yeah.
That does sort of touch on an interesting situation we have to consider. We have the opportunity to sign on another program for winter trees. Andrew, the fellow that did the earlier program, and I looked at the calendar for November and December, and both of the fourth Wednesdays are, like, one is the day before Thanksgiving and one is maybe 2 days before Christmas. Normally that would be just a huge deal breaker. This year, I'm wondering what anybody's thoughts are on, is the day before Thanksgiving going to be the huge problem like it normally would be?
I don't have any plans for Thanksgiving.
How about in January?
And in January, that would be the easy solution, I think, is just to roll it over. Even though the further away we get, the more it's less timely for this season, but it would still be interesting just to see what he has to tell us about deciduous trees. And
I had thought about January as well and wondered if that would fly. Usually we start in February, and you know, I do have a program lined up for February, but we could start a month early. You know, we missed some programs this year.
Sure.
And we do have Andrew on the schedule for later in the year as well, but that wouldn't be terrible if things work out that he's actually able to come out and, you know, do a workshop and do a program. Otherwise we could do him virtually again. So we're kind of, I think next year it's going to be a month by month thing.
yeah, I know we were all hoping that it would all just be back to normal in 2021, but there is not yet that reason to hope.
Yeah.
So
There
maybe we'll you know, I'll poll the board members later, but maybe January is the solution. And since we're doing everything differently anyway, there's no reason we can't have a different start of the year.
Sure. Yeah, and given winter, when everybody is likely to be locked down again between the flu and COVID, it might be welcome, actually.
That's true.
And given that the earliest you could do it is November, there's not that much advantage to getting the information then. Most people's trees will be put to bed by then anyway.
Yeah, that's certainly true too. So we'll just get it for general interest and do that in January.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he would be open to that. He indicated quite a bit of flexibility, and we could probably even do fourth Wednesday as we normally do. But if we had to switch it, we could also do that.
Well, that certainly sounds good. Well, we don't have pictures for everybody checked in yet. I don't know if they don't have camera mode.
There's
There he
one on.
Welcome, Matthew.
Everybody.
John?
Hello.
Nice to see you, John.
Hi, everybody.
John, you were, I seem to recall you said you were going to be moving. Have you done that?
Well, no. Yeah, I think I've talked my wife out of it, frankly. So I mean, we were very seriously considering a move to St. Louis, and then for a variety of reasons, we decided that wasn't a good move. And then she was interested in a house sort of outside of Ann Arbor, and we decided that wasn't so for us exactly. And now with the pandemic, I'm glad we're right where we are.
Okay.
So.
And we're glad you're not going anywhere.
Oh, well, thank you. It's good to have a group of people who I can learn from, and there's a lot to learn. So,
yes.
Hello, Jack. Jack's face just showed up for a second. So,
I don't see Don yet. I see his name.
everybody's staying healthy, I hope.
So far.
Good.
Yeah, John, echoing what you were just saying, when I tell people about this group, that's what I comment on is even though I am not of a novice age, bonsai speaking, I'm still very much a novice. And it's been wonderful to connect with all the talent and knowledge we have in this group.
Mm-hmm. Has been. I probably haven't taken advantage of it as much as I should, but maybe someday.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, oh yeah. Last winter, I think that really early freeze last winter, after reading Jack's article about wintering, which I found very informative, I think the freeze we had in October last year, that real sudden drop, I think that's why several of my plants died, probably, before they even got into the winter.
I remember everything looked dead, even the trees in the ground, the leaves died on the branches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I had some trees in pots that I thought were quite healthy, and they came through the winter and were in terrible shape, and they didn't make it. Some of them didn't. Some did, but
Yeah, that kind of caught, I think that caught everybody flat-footed. I know it caught me with things still out, and I just threw everything under the benches and threw a tarp over it. And
well, that was good. I was in St. Louis.
yeah, yeah, and minimal casualties, but I certainly didn't do my usual wintering thing in time for that freeze. So yeah, it was. I'm gonna get on top of it a little earlier this year.
Well, I'm
John, what
Yeah.
were your trees that, what were the species that you had troubles with? 'Cause
Well,
I know a lot of us lost junipers and stuff, but there was a disease going around also.
I lost the 2 black pines I had, but I think I lost them to a fungal infection. And Scots pine was just fine. That was with them. I lost, what are those? An Alberta spruce that I had just been growing in a pot, not really doing any bonsai or trying to do much with it until the last couple of years, but it had survived the winter in a pot for like 8 years. So I kept thinking I'm going to try to get into doing something with this tree. And, it wouldn't have made a great bonsai, but I was just pleased that I'd kept it alive, and it had a beautiful cover of moss on the surface. So, I don't know, it looked healthy until I pulled it out in the spring and all the needles fell off. So.
Ooh. And which was that again? Was that
That was an Alberta spruce, which
Alberta spruce? Okay.
I'm sure are not good from things I've read since then, they're not good for bonsai anyway, apparently. But
you're going to be leaving wire on for the rest of your life.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, from what I understand, they will.
They just won't hold a position.
They will. You take the wire off, and they'll just spring right back to where they were.
I also lost some seedling Japanese maples, but other seedlings, and my little, I have a Shimpaku juniper, and I just put them in the vegetable drawer of my refrigerator in the basement for the winter. And they were great. They seemed very happy.
So I've got one azalea, just one Satsuki azalea that I'm wondering, okay, what am I going to do for the winter? And maybe this is a question for Jack. Can I let it just go dormant for a while and keep it from freezing too badly, and then stick it under my lights and give it an early start for next year?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sure it will survive.
Okay, that's reassuring. Will it thrive?
Don't know.
Okay.
I haven't done that. Don't have that experience.
Okay.
They will live indoors and they will live outdoors.
Okay. I know you've kept them in your setup, which is fairly cool in your basement. What do you think about just keeping them under lights in the house at, mid 60s temperatures?
60 sounds fine.
You think that would be okay? So maybe I don't need to worry about letting it go dormant at all. Just put it under lights.
But no, they don't need to go dormant.
Okay. So maybe I'll just do that. Since I only have one, I can get away with that.
I'm thinking about the Bill Heston thing. If you got a tree you don't know what to do with. You give it to somebody you don't like.
Well, in this case, it's not that I don't like the tree. It's just I'm not sure how to keep it healthy. And I know after last winter, it was not looking real great. And I've had some problems with chlorosis over the summer, and I'm figuring that out. But
I think Jay, I think your best bet would be to push it in the ground someplace where it isn't wet and put a rose cone over it.
really,
Well, that's
even if it gets extremely
go
cold,
dormant a little bit. It's been experiencing some cold and it's ready for winter and you just need to protect it from extremes.
okay. So if it's protected like that, even if it gets quite cold, you think it would be okay?
Put the rose cone over it and the temperature is about soil temperature rather than air temperature. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I will look into where I might put it to do that.
From what
Now
I've
that I
read,
thought about it for a couple of minutes, that's what I would do.
Okay. All
from
right.
what I've read, you want to stay between 35 and 55 degrees. So I have mine in my garage with a heater on a thermostat set to 40 degrees at night, 45 during the day, with indirect light from my grow light. Is my plan for mine this year. I'm gonna try to keep it between 40 and 45.
I haven't done that.
Okay.
I would expect them to
Jack,
survive.
could I ask Jack one quick question?
Sure. We're real close to our 7
Okay,
o'clock.
I've got that Mendocino cypress cutting you gave me still going along quite well. And for the winter, will it be okay in the basement under lights?
Absolutely.
Okay,
You can grow that for years under the lights. It does
Okay.
very well.
great.
That's probably the best place for it. You know, they
And
really,
probably springtime is a good time to repot that too.
sure, they really won't take the hard winter cold. You know,
Right.
just that hardy.
Okay.
Bring it inside.
Okay, well,
Thanks, Jack.
with the chime, I think that's our time to start our meeting, and welcome. I wanted to ask, I know that on the 9 people that I can see at the moment, we have one new member for sure. Jay Thomas has joined our group and joined our meeting. Welcome.
Thank you.
And it's been a little hectic the last 30 days or so. I wanted to ask if we have any more new members who have joined us in this last stretch since the auction. David?
Yeah, Dave Malmquist. Thank you. I live down here in Dundee. Just starting to get into bonsai.
Oh, terrific.
But
Well,
we
you're
were
in
at so,
you're in a great part of the state to get in trouble learning about bonsai.
I know.
Stay away from the flower market.
That's what I'm saying. Kurt Smith has kind of dragged me kicking and screaming into this. Actually, about a year and a half ago, I took an indoor bonsai class, and it was a bougainvillea that I turned into a bonsai, and it's done really, really well. And so now I'm going to start my sights on a juniper that I got from Kurt through you guys. And I'm going to figure out what to do with it this winter, listening to you guys tonight. So
You've got the extreme opposites for
Yes.
winterization.
one is a tropical and the other is, an outdoor one. So I have about 50 tropical plants in the house right now. They came in a week ago. So I've had 8 of them 45 years or 45 to 50 years, and I've got one 80-year-old plant. So
Wow.
Are they bonsai or are they just?
no,
house
they're just regular house plants. Bird of paradise, another bougainvillea. The Christmas cactus is an 80-year-old plant. So just a variety of stuff.
Well, that's pretty remarkable. I occasionally see pictures of those, and I haven't managed not to kill one for that long a stretch of time yet.
well, the Christmas cactus was inherited. So inherited about 10 years ago. And the woman who gave it to me, she had died at 96, I think. And so she had it for many, many, many years before that. So I think it was her mother's Christmas cactus. So.
Oh, wow, that's terrific.
I know.
Ray and I are new members too. We just joined within the last couple months.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, yeah.
We have tropicals and outdoor.
I see one face I know on there, Chris. Hi, Chris. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
And Ron,
It's a
how are
good
you
club.
doing?
Oh, Ron is there as well.
Yeah, Ron's over here.
Oh,
Yeah, still hanging around, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if when I do get the bugs worked out of that laptop, if it means I can see more people's pictures at once. I've just got the Hollywood Squares version right now, and with all the people we have in the meeting already, madly scrolling from screen to screen to catch up with the speaker and see who we have.
Yeah, the bigger the screen you got more. I've got about 15 people I can see at a time, but then I got 2 screens so I can also see the speaker all by itself.
Well, that's pretty nice.
We can see 25. Not everybody's got pictures on, but there's about 25 on our screen.
I've got 26 and then 2 screens, but I'm on a big screen here.
Well, this is a tiny little iPad and it's very effective, but there are some drawbacks. So, well, welcome to the new folks, and nice to see some of the, I don't want to call them old folks, but you know, the faces that we've been seeing and chatting with over the years. Our items on the agenda tonight are the election, reporting out the nominating committee, and then the program on winterizing techniques. And let's just jump right in and get the election taken care of ahead of time, and then we'll get to the really fun stuff and see what people have in mind for overwintering their trees. But before we turn to the slate of people who will be on the ballot, so to speak, I wanted to extend a hearty thanks to Ron and Tam Maloston for years of service and helping the club move forward over the years, and to Carmen Laskoviansky and Peggy Kubitz, who are stepping down from their directors' positions, and their help with meetings and with board meetings and ideas has been much appreciated. So it's while you would like to have people just stay on forever, the reality is that you need to do something new from time to time. And we do thank them for their years of service. Look forward to the service that newer members on the board will be able to provide. And with that in mind, I'll read through the list that we have for the nominating committee. And for the president, it would be me, Mark Hanner. I may still be showing up as AABS Bonsai. We'll get that worked out for the next time. Vice president would be Jay Sinclair. Recording secretary, Chris Carey. Communication and marketing secretary, Bob Bauer. Newsletter editor, Don Wenzel. Treasurer, we're still working on that. And show committee chair, we have Kurt Smith. Membership coordinator, it's one of the director's positions, or are there, no, this is an actual officer position, and that's Will Faison. And then the 2 directors, one is our webmaster and Zoom coordinator, Laura Andre, and the other is our director of publicity, Dana Herman. And we have one director, Aaron Binns. The directors are 2-year positions, and his term started last year. So I want to thank Aaron, although he couldn't join the meeting tonight. He's continuing and does not need to be reelected, just appreciated. Do we have any nominations from the floor for any of the positions? Okay, then I will turn it over at this point to Laura Andre, who has put together essentially a poll for people. The thought occurred to me we could all just raise our hands or not, and I'll scroll through the screens, but we thought we'd try to do it, a little more cool. And since we have a good webmaster, let her work her magic with that.
Mark, it's super easy. I am going to launch the poll now, and everyone should be able to see the election poll pop up on their screen. All of the officer positions are in the first question, and you may answer yes or no. And the 2 director positions are in the second question. And again, answer yes or no.
When we get volunteers, I don't believe we ever say no, do we?
Amen, Ron.
What's wall set up, Laura?
Thank you. It is nice and straightforward to do online.
Is it a polling feature of Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I might need that for another group.
I can send you a link if you'd like on how to create one.
Oh, okay, sure.
All right, so I see that everyone has voted, and I can share the results. So everyone should be able to see them now. We have unanimous yeses for everything, as to be expected. So Mark, I can pass it off to you.
Excellent. I'm working in the dark here, so I'm going to presume that that all went according to Hoyle. And thank you all, those who have volunteered and or continued on in positions. It's a good club can only succeed with the help from a lot of hands and a lot of heads, and it's much appreciated. And with the business part out of the way, then let's turn to the section on our winterizing techniques. And Bob Bauer has a PowerPoint program of photos that people have submitted, something like 7, 8, 9 different people. And Bob will move the slides forward. And I believe the person who submitted the photos, their name will show up on the first of their slides. And if not that, then if you recognize them, then if you would just go ahead and step forward and tell the group what the photo represents and how that works into your winterizing plan.
That's awesome.
Okay, that's mine, Ron Maloston here. First off, I want to let you know that I started off just by having plants and I put them on the ground, covering them up with leaf mulch. And that actually works rather well until you get a mouse or a rabbit or a really bad winter where some of the animals cannot dig down into the snow to get food and they come in and girdle your trees. Well, over the years, that has been a problem. So I actually put them in this enclosure, as you see the fencing around this little greenhouse. And that worked really well too. And I had them buried in sand, about 6 inches of sand. So I would bury the pot in the sand, leave the tree exposed. And the fencing kept the rabbits and anything smaller that would come in. I put a lot of mouse pellets down there, decon pellets to kill the mice. And that worked really well. So I had not lost any trees due to critters at this point. And then recently I downsized my collection quite a bit. So I bought this little greenhouse, and it was at Costco. It was like $600. You assemble it yourself. So, and it fit within this enclosure I had. There's also sand on the bottom, 6 inches. And on top of that, I added a heating unit at the bottom of the sand, and it keeps that temperature about 40 degrees. Now inside the house itself stays nice and cold, and I leave a vent to open on top just because, so there's not so much moisture accumulation, or if it's a sunny day, I don't want it really to get all that warm. What I did find, even before I had this enclosure, just by putting the sand with these heating units underneath, and there's 200 foot of cabling going underneath there. And it's a system that you use for seedlings, actually, in the greenhouse when you're trying to grow seedlings. And you can set this temperature range, anything you want on it. But I have it under there, and I have found that come spring, sometimes you go to take your tree out and it's starting to grow leaves and doing all this stuff. But if you take it out of your mulch, it's still frozen to the ground. And that was problematic for me. So I now had the heating units under there, and it worked just fine. None of my pots were frozen to the ground. They were easy to get out and everything. They never had a hard freeze on them. But with this unit, I don't worry now about, I had a lot of trees, you get things falling on it, get snow heavy, get raccoons in there. Sometimes they would crawl on my trees, break a branch or two. So this is relatively new for me to try this. There's no heater in there, although some people do use heaters. But the only thing I have is a heat tape that goes underneath all of the trees. Do we have another slide in there that shows that little heater unit, Bob?
You see it now?
I just see the,
there
it is. This is a Ready Heat digital set 40. 40 is as low as it goes. You can get some, I think, in the 30 range, but that's 40 is a comfortable range, and it works rather well. And I have 2 cables at 100 feet each that I snake back and forth underneath the sand, and I plug it inside my shed there. And that so far has worked really well. And there's a thermostat, the really small, or thermometer, I should say, that really small wire at the bottom of the screen on the right-hand side is a thermometer that goes down underneath the center pot. And that's, I wish they had several thermometers around there so you could monitor it. Now, I have not ever monitored the temperatures, but I do know that my pots have not frozen to the ground. So I'm assuming they're handling the cold just fine. And I have not lost trees due to inclement weathers or animals or tree branches falling or anything like that. But it does limit me on how many trees I can put in there.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm wondering what the size of that greenhouse is and how many plants you accommodate.
The greenhouse is 8 foot wide by 12 foot. And right now I've got about 40 trees in there. Most of them are relatively small pots, like 10 inches or less. You would not get that much in there if you had, 12 or 16-inch pots. So it is a smaller one, but then I have downsized my collection considerably. I do have some plants still out in the yard, but they're bigger pots and they're under mulch only, and they're not deciduous. So I'm not too worried about animals chewing on them.
Thank you.
Okay, there's not much else I can tell you about it. That's just another view of it. And you can see where the black one in the center there is a thermostat. I guess I should have showed it, could have showed it with the trees, but it would have been just solid green trees and none of the other equipment in there. The other thing's kind of nice too is in the spring when things start coming out, you can even start your, hopefully we're going to start tomato plants and that kind of stuff while I have this.
So Ron, everything goes on the ground, nothing on shelves?
Put everything on the ground. In the past, there was a time I think Kurt had a problem. He had a cold frame and he had everything up on shelves and he was losing some trees. And Jack, I believe, was the one that advised him, put them on the ground. That is the best way to do it, unless you have some kind of a heat or something in there. Are you there, Jack?
I'm here.
Is that still something you think should be done as opposed to putting them up on shelves?
If you have enough room to do that.
Yeah, because you know I have 3 shelves up there, and I could add quite a few more shelves, and the shelves hold 60 pounds.
Things on the ground are not going to get as cold as things up on the shelf.
Yeah, I would hate to have, you know, one of those freak winters that got really cold, you know.
Ron, I have a question.
Sure.
How warm does the air get in there on sunny days?
On sunny days, it gets pretty warm. It could go up into 50s and 60s, but there is an opening at the top that I have opened, hopefully for hot days, and it won't get too warm.
And so that hasn't been a problem with the temperature getting warm like that on a sunny day?
I don't know yet. This is fairly new to me.
Okay, thank
No,
you.
Ron.
Yeah.
Ron, this is
Yeah.
Jack. There are paints that are made for shading greenhouses. Paint for painting the glass. There are things like that, and I think you'd be well advised to paint all of the glass surface to keep it from heat from varying as much as it does, moderating the temperature extremes.
Jack, we're really having trouble hearing you. I don't know why that is. We missed most of that.
I try it again.
There you go. That's better there.
Okay, I'm trying to use my adult voice here. So my suggestion is that you get a greenhouse paint, shading paint that's made for painting greenhouses and keeping them from getting too hot in the summer, and apply that over all of the glass.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'll have to look into that a little more, covering it. I could do that, and that way it won't get that hot. Yeah.
Yes.
He was thinking of winter time.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I use sand too. Some people have used gravel, but I wanted sand just because I can get, when I first put them down, I soaked the whole thing pretty wet. And it's quite surprising how long that moisture stays in there. You know, only about a ½ inch on the top will dry out. The rest of it stays damp. No water puddling, just damp. And that's basically what I want.
That probably transmits the heat throughout pretty well too.
I would think so. Yeah. And like I say, it's a good 4 to 6 inches, maybe 6 inches even of sand.
Any more questions for Ron?
Yeah, Ron, if 40 is significantly downsized for you, what was your original collection?
Oh, I've had as many as 200 trees. I tried to maintain the last few years around 50. I found that to be a lot of trees. The other thing was it wasn't just the number of trees, it was the size. I was having some pretty large trees. I'm finding them more and more difficult to handle. What I did find though by downsizing is my trees are really much nicer because I spend a lot more time per tree. I stay with the maintenance of them almost weekly with every tree because I don't have that many. And there's always wire on a tree, never a tree without wire. And I can wire twice a year, which is really nice. And I don't feel overwhelmed, you know.
Could I ask, Ron, where do you get these? This is the second mention I've heard of a digital thermostat. Where do you get that sort of thing?
I'm not sure what you're talking about. I mean, this unit that I bought here,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. As far as, is that Ready Heat thing you bought everything all at once?
Right. Yeah, everything came with that. And you could buy as many cables as you want, you know, and I'm sure you could get different thermometers also, but it only has one input for the thermometer.
So where do you get things like that?
I just went online to gardening and growing seedlings.
Oh, okay.
And that's the places that have that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
What you want to be mindful of is you want to check the amp rating on any of the thermostats that you get. I found that a lot of them are only going to be rated for about 12 amp, where even if you're just running a space heater, that can run up to 15 amps of power that it's going to draw. So you're going to need to get into a more expensive unit, or you're going to have to downgrade the heating system that you're using. So that's just something to pay attention to.
Well, that's true. When you're putting them in, like, okay, I have 2 lines coming off that, I could go to 4 and my amps can still handle it. But if you're going to more than that, you may have to get 2 units, depending on how much you're going to cover.
Yeah, I saw yours was rated for plenty, but I'm talking about a lot of the Amazon units, things like that you got to mind the amperage rating.
Yeah. Okay. This was not, I forget the cost of it, but it wasn't like a $50 unit, you know, it was much more than that. So.
Ron, have you thought about putting an exhaust fan on a thermostat in there to automate it a little bit instead of just having a vent that you need to open?
There is I could put on there a vent that is automatic. It opens at when it gets above 75 or something like that. But I have not put that up there yet. I've just cracked it a little bit just to let the heat out. I didn't want to have anything that I had to hook up, you know, electrically, but they do have them that are spring loaded and operated with pistons and temperature. That's a little bigger unit, and that unit's pretty small. You know, it's got, you know, room in the center, like 7 feet to walk, but on the edges gets a little low and you'd be banging your head all the time on that thing. So I just didn't put it on. I still have it, but I haven't put it on. We'll see this year. You know, I'm pretty inexperienced on this one. So.
It's a nice looking greenhouse.
Well, I thought for the price, what Costco was selling it for, it was nice. Now, it did take 2 of us many, many hours to put it together. There's a lot of work to putting it together, but it can be done easily enough. But it really helpful to have two.
What do you charge to come over and install these units?
Yeah, I wish I had somebody. And the only thing I did for a base now, you can see those are 6x6s, and basically they're for weight. And it is screwed down to those 6x6s. They recommend you put in a like an anchor of some kind, but the little anchors they give you are ridiculous. So, you know, you need to anchor it somehow in case a wind comes along and takes it for a ride. But mine being within a shelter like that, I don't worry too much about the wind, even though I did anchor it with 6x6s. And they're womanized, they're extremely heavy.
Is that glass or plexiglass I'm looking
It's
at?
just plastic, clear plastic. And it's supposed to be, I forgot what all they said about it, but it's supposed to be a special kind of a plexiglass that lets in less heat than normal. But I don't know. I was in there in the summer and it was pretty warm.
You say you got that at Costco?
Yeah.
When was that? We go to Costco. I never noticed such a thing.
Oh, I went online and then they ship it to you.
Can I ask what the price range is?
$600. Yeah, and then those I bought $200 for the flooring and sand in there. That's a lot of sand in there. It's about 4 yards of sand. That's a lot of sand. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, Bob, we want to take a look at the next one?
Some Hanner guy.
Oh, okay. This is a before picture. More than 20 years ago, Becky and I had a little weekend nursery business here behind the house and built a 20 by 48 hoop house. And it weathered a number of blizzards and heavy snows and things. And when it came time for the second replacement of the visqueen, we were using the 2-layer visqueen method for insulating. There was a little blower fan and it would inflate that. It looked like, the Michelin Man sort of hovering over the greenhouse. It's a giant marshmallow out there. But some of you know that we have semi-feral kitties here, and they shredded the visqueen when they were horsing around playing on the top. And it was getting old anyway, so we needed to replace it and decided that we were approaching the age where we didn't want to look forward to, and we shortened the greenhouse. It's now only 32 feet long, but we did not want to have a long future of taking off the old visqueen and putting new layers on every 6-7 years. That gets to be kind of a big project. And we've done it twice. So we decided, I think if we could move to the next screen, to go to, the next slide.
Yeah, there is a, looks to be about a 7-second lag.
Okay.
Between, so tell me 7 seconds in advance when you want to change.
Very good, Bob. I'll work on my anticipation here. So we started doing this. We did not intend, let me back up a second. What we decided to do was go with polycarbonate. And it was a very, it was the upgraded version. There's a very thin model available. And then there's one, I forget how many millimeters the air pockets are, but It's very sturdy. And we ordered it thinking we'd do this in the nice early September. Oh, there's a good shot of when it's done. Weather and not have to worry about cold weather, but it was on back order and it didn't get delivered until mid-November. So replacing it became a matter of peeling back the old visqueen a few feet at a time and putting new panels of the polycarbonate, and then employing the assistance of friends and family for as long as they could stand, working out in the cold weather, retrofitting this greenhouse. And I added some little supports inside just to give it a little more strength in there. And there you can see some of the trees are in there. I guess that was a picture from a couple years ago. And then in order to deal with the different snow load, it didn't have as high a peak as the old visqueen roof did. So I think this year I started getting trees in there much sooner. So here they are. I decided not to wait until we had a 25-degree forecast and then try to get everything in there. And I've been taking a few trees in every day, every trip out to feed the cat. I think maybe the last picture will show what we did for snow braces. No, I guess not. That's just a heater. So what we did was use 4x4s and ran them down the center. So they have held up the snow real well. It isn't quite as steep. It doesn't have a nice steep pitch on it, so that snow will almost automatically slide off. You do get a lot of ice buildup on there, but with those 4x4s in the center, that has enabled it to endure some pretty deep snow out there. And the old Modine heater we had used for most of those 20 years was really kind of rusting out. And at Menards, they had this little unit. It was really geared for something about the size. I forget the BTUs on this, but last year, its first year in service, we only used one 125-gallon tank of propane the entire winter. And it was a pretty cold winter. Somebody referenced that October freeze that started winter out early for us. So we've been pretty pleased with how inexpensive it was to heat the greenhouse, just a nominal amount to get through the winter. The question came up earlier with Ron about the temperature range. We set our heating thermostat for 32 degrees, and we have a second thermostat and a vent system. In one end is an electric or a powered louver, and then in the opposite end, the west end, that's the louver. In the east end is a fan. And when the second thermostat recognizes a 50-degree temperature, it kicks on the fan to draw in the cooler air. Because without the shade cloth on, it does get very, very pleasant in there on a sunny January day. So that exhaust fan will bring in what might be 35-degree air and helps keep the temperature from getting too out of control. And that works for all the bonsai and all of those zone 6 trees and shrubs in containers that you kind of get addicted to sometimes when you go shopping online. So that's our system. I don't know if there are any questions about how that's set up.
Mark, do you leave everything on shelves?
No, a lot of the material is on shelves. The smaller pots in particular, we have the unusual issue of the semi-feral cats to deal with and the occasional raccoon that gets in there and terrorizes the cats. So there are a lot of larger pots that just go on the ground. So it really just kind of depends on the size of the pot. There's a monster. I think you saw the Shishigashira just outside the door. It's in a container. It must be, oh, like a 50 or 60 gallon planter. And the Shishigashira is in that planter. It's about 8 feet tall. It's that's definitely on the ground. And there are some others that are about the same size, but they go in there at the very end when it's, when you don't need to finesse your way through to get the smaller ones in. Okay, Bob, I think we're 7 seconds away from another setup.
This is going to be me, but I know I've got a lot of helpers here. I know Jay and John and Jack know a whole lot more about this than I do. I'm showing this because it is an inspiration for what I do at my house. And now I'm going to have to talk 7 seconds behind. So this is going to get kind of weird. There is a wooden box that gets torn down every spring when the trees are removed and gets rebuilt at the end of October, so that the first Thursday in November, all the trees can go in into the workspace. And somebody correct me, but I think that this is 8 foot by 12 foot. And it's based upon the 4x8 sheets of styrofoam that totally enclose this. And there is some heating coils underneath these peat that's the plants are buried in the box. And if the photo is changed, you should see the box out full with the trees that have been placed in there. And once all the trees are inside, the styrofoam sheets are affixed to the wooden box with screws, as I recall. And see, I think that there's a couple more here. Picture of Jack and Diane. Is you seeing that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And additional storage at Hidden Lake Gardens is buried in these boxes. I think that the bottom of these bins are probably a couple of feet below ground surface. And then wooden slats go on the top of the boxes.
Is this dirt that that in both the setups?
Is
that
it
it's
what
buried
now?
in?
This
Is it
is
dirt?
sphagnum peat.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah.
Jack.
Sphagnum peat, yeah. Yeah, and it's watered, and Jack is in there every fall burying trees, and we bring them into him, and he gets them in there. So hopefully you'll see a 4x4 box that I built in my pole barn. Originally, I started out with a 4x8 box and it filled with trees. And then I had to add another 4x4 box. This year I ran out of space, so I had to do something different. In the pole barn, I have a giant second, a storage area that's 7 feet off the ground. So what I did was to enclose an 8x8 area that I put the styrofoam around, and I have the 4x8 boxes to put the trees in. And those trees will rest on the floor, water the peat, and then I'll seal up the outside of the container so that it's all closed with 1.5 inch insulation. I have no supplemental heat. I've had good luck inside the pole barn. It's certainly out of the wind. And the insulation has been enough to protect the trees. So it's those sheets of insulation are expensive, but overall, I think it's a relatively inexpensive way of doing it. And you can do these with just without a wooden frame. With an 1.5 inch thickness of styrofoam, you can use nails and pin the whole thing together, especially if you're working with 4x8 sheets. That those sheets are strong enough that they'll span without drooping, without any support. So that's it.
So Bob, do you water those during the course of the winter at all?
I do. When the snow melts enough so I can walk over to the barn, I figure it's warm enough inside of there that they'll take a little bit of water. So the panel that you see to the right front of this, that is tacked in there so that 4 nails will remove that, and then I can get inside with a watering can and water everything.
Have you found them to be pretty dried out when you did go in there?
No, I have not. It seems like the initial wetting of the peat stays there for months, well into January, before I notice that it's drying out at all.
And the air probably stays fairly moist because it's so well sealed.
This is my first year with this box. Previously, I had a 4x8 sheet that just covered the top of the box. And sometimes I left a crack in it so that it was not tightly sealed. This year, it is going to be more sealed up. So there won't be a whole lot of air exchange, but there is quite a bit of volume of air inside.
So that looks like a pretty nice setup.
Okay, I got nothing more. We ready to move on?
Sure.
7 seconds. I can tell you it's going to be Jay. So you ready, Jay?
I guess
pop
so.
up here in a second.
Okay, so my setup is quite a bit less sophisticated and much more low tech than what you've seen so far, and it's necessitated in part by the fact that I have a pretty small yard and was on a kind of a budget for a while. So what I started doing was getting bales of straw every year, and there you see my brother helping me out. And so I would get 20 bales of straw and I'd build a house of straw to put my trees in. And I've taken to putting landscape fabric on the ground. And at first I would also actually string it on the inside of the bales to help keep some of the straw out of the pots like this. And that worked pretty well, but it's a lot of fooling around. This last winter, we didn't bother with that. And you can see that I go 2 bales high, alternating them kind of like bricks. And I've got one tree that's too tall for that. So my Japanese maple, every year I dig a round hole in the yard and drop the pot into the ground and then go over that with a landscape fabric. And then I just have to seed that back in the spring. And this obviously blocks the wind. It insulates, the straw insulates extremely well. And then in the last few years, I've also been mulching things in with peat. That peat looks pretty dry, but I keep it wetter than that. And I just put the pots in and kind of dig them in and bury them with the peat and make sure it's good and moist. And that has worked pretty well. And then I just throw my benches over the top. And one of the things that has been, concern is people look at that and say, oh, that looks like a rodent hotel. And I've been concerned about that. But so far, knock on wood, it hasn't been a problem. I do put some snap traps in there. I haven't ever caught anything with those. I do put also, and I don't like doing this, but some little rat and mouse hotels with the poison in them in there, and those do sometimes show evidence that somebody's been chewing on them. And I'm concerned about that because, of course, that stuff accumulates up the food chain. And I'm hoping to come up with a system that gets me away from having to use that. The orange tags, by the way, are trees that are due to be repotted in the spring. There's no heating or anything involved here. The trees are all sitting on the ground. I do have some smaller things that I put in nursery baskets filled with peat, accent plants and that kind of stuff. And that's worked pretty well. And then I throw my bench tops over all of that. And rain and snow can get in through the gaps in the benches. And so I really don't need to worry too much about watering over the winter. I don't know the temperatures in there, but the ground temperature is going to pretty much determine the temperature of the pots, and everything else is pretty well buffered by all the straw. And again, so far, no real rodent problems. I am thinking of upgrading to something more like what Bob's doing, but outside, again, with something on top that would allow rain and snow to get in there so that, watering would not be an issue, and maybe thinking about heat tapes. But that's what I do. It's worked quite well. I guess my one question for Jack would be, you mentioned burying my azalea in the ground and putting a rose cone on it. Do you think putting it in this would work? Would this be sufficient, do you think?
I think this would work, but I think getting the pot in the ground where it doesn't get quite as cold would be better.
Would be best. Okay. All right. So that's what I do. Pretty simple, pretty low tech. The concern was, and I know Pam, my wife, the first year I did this, she said, "What are you going to do with the straw when in the spring?" And of course, by spring it's kind of soggy. And I said, "Oh, I'll put it out at the curb, and people will take it for mulching their gardens." And she kind of scoffed at that, but in fact, I put it out, and pretty quickly it was gone. And now I don't even have to do that because I've got a guy I call in the spring, and he comes and picks it up. So yeah, people will take that off your hands for mulch, and it costs me between $2 and $3 a bale, depending on the year, for the straw. And if I want to keep a little bit for mulch for my own garden, I can do that too.
What about light? It looks like those are pretty kept in the dark all winter, the plants. So does that have any effect on them?
No, they're dormant. They don't really need light.
Okay. Even the evergreens.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the setup, there's no light in there at all.
Yeah.
A lot of people have wintered A lot of bonsai people have wintered things in complete darkness. They're okay there while they're dormant, including the evergreens. You think about that little white pine up in the UP that's buried in 12 feet of snow or whatever. You know, how much light is that getting?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I got a little comment on this. An experience with Aaron Binns. He built a unit, not like this, it was in the ground, but it would pertain to this too, like you have nice boards on top. He had thin boards and plastic covering his, and he had a dog run over it and fall through the plastic and busted up a bunch of his trees, because then the dog went into a panic trying to get out. So if you're going to do something like this, do as Jay did. Have some good solid boards up there just in case something like that happens. Even a tree branch falling on it could break through if you didn't have a good protection.
Yeah, and I was thinking about building a frame, similar to what Bob's done, and putting that heavy insulation there, and then putting something over the top. I don't know if that would be strong enough to support these bench tops, but I thought about building a frame and covering it with hardware cloth, and that would keep the critters out and still allow rain and snow to get in there. Probably wouldn't insulate quite as well as the boards.
I'd be worried about the snow pushing down on the cloth as a unit and creating problems, as opposed to snow just falling on it.
Yeah, I'm talking hardware cloth, basically the wire screening, so the snow would basically go through it, and I'd have snow building up on my trees. And I think that would serve to further insulate, if anything. So not that we get a lot of snow usually, but yeah, I'm still kind of thinking about that. I'll probably still do it this way this year, but next year I may be doing something a little different. I've also thought about a greenhouse like what Ron is doing, but again, with a pretty small yard, that permanently commits a piece of the yard to a structure. And I don't know how well that would work out.
Well, that's a real clever system that you came up with for overwintering trees in, on a city lot, basically.
Right.
That a lot of people could benefit from something like that.
Yeah, I don't have room for a pit,
Mhm.
because that would be another way to go, like the ones there at Hidden Gardens. And I know Cyril Groom, for example, has pits, and then he puts a hardware cloth frame over those, and that works, really well. But I can't really justify committing that much space in my very small yard to something like that.
Jay, what did you say you do with the small accent plants?
I basically put them in nursery baskets, those black plastic trays that you see at nurseries. I don't have any. Bob, can we back up? Maybe there's some showing in one of the pictures.
Oops.
I don't think so, though. But they're the black plastic trays. Nope, I guess that's not going to work. It's like a bin. No, there's not in there, unfortunately. I just put them in there and fill it with the peat, and I can stack those, and it's like an extension of the ground. Yeah, it looks like there's none there in the pictures, and I can stack those. And
so they will hold peat. They're not like open-sided things. Or?
Well, they've got holes in them, but the holes are small enough that if you've got damp peat, it holds together. Yeah, it's not the green bins in the background. That's what I keep my peat in actually over the summer. But yeah, they've got holes in them, and so they'll drain. But if the peat is damp and you've got pots in there, they'll keep the peat in there, and that insulates them enough. It seems to work out pretty well.
So you just bury them completely in the peat?
Pretty much, yeah.
Are these all herbaceous type accent plants? Okay.
We just bury the pot. You don't bury the tree, just the pot.
Well, the herbaceous things, the top dies back, it's a pot with roots and stuff in it. And some of the stuff I put into little trays. And that just gets buried in the peat. And then I dig it out in the spring and it sprouts up from the ground and starts over.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, you wouldn't want to do that with a tree. You wouldn't want to bury the tree completely in peat. I think that would be a problem. Okay, that's it for
Very
me.
good, Jay.
No more questions.
So,
Is Ken here? I don't know that.
I did see his name earlier.
Oh,
Wow.
Ken, you need to unmute yourself if you're here.
We talking Ken Huth?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see him on here.
I don't see him on the list anymore.
Okay, I'm going to advance very quickly through his 7 slides. And you'll get a good idea of what's going on, but unfortunately, no narration to go with the photos.
He was on earlier. I saw his name.
Well, we can come back to these if he reappears.
One thing to observe here is that he's using milky plastic rather than clear plastic. So it's not going to heat up nearly as much in the winter.
Yeah, Jack, do you suppose that Ron could just drape something like this or fasten something like this over his greenhouse?
Sure. Sure. Good idea.
I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah,
that's
I'm quite positive I'm going to get a cloth to block some of the light over the greenhouse. That's a good idea. I just hold it down with some tie straps. I know some of these houses like we just looked at here with Ken's and like Kurt's, that plastic gets replaced every year. Whereas the plastics, you know, on the other greenhouses is solid and it lasts for several years. I think it's got like a 10-year guarantee.
And one advantage with the paint, of course, is you put it on and it lasts however long it lasts. And then you're not, you know, you don't have waste. You're not throwing something away. You're just putting more paint on.
To answer your question, Bob, that's a clip that's used with hoop houses to hold the visqueen in place. You kind of rock back and forth with that clip. He doesn't have plastic in place to demonstrate that, but he is showing with that how you put that into the channel to hold it in place.
Okay,
Mark, I've wondered with a hoop house, how much trouble is it to, you know, put one up and cover it and maybe then uncover it or even take it down completely every year? Is a hoop house something I could put up in the fall and take down in the spring, or would that be an awful lot of work?
The size that we have, it would be way too much work to want to bother with. Possibly a smaller one, it wouldn't seem that cumbersome, but I mean, ours, the posts are a couple feet in the ground anyway. There are 2x4s running at ground level and up about at the 3-foot level, or down the sides. It's a regular construction project, and deconstructing it would be just a real cumbersome chore.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
I think you would find that the same on the small little greenhouses that you can buy, because they can be assembled and disassembled, but every time you do it, you're messing up the little screw holes and stuff. It's not like they're bolt together. They're screws that go into pieces of bent metal and things, and it's just gonna. I think overuse would strip all your screws out and bend your poles. They're pretty delicate. They're pretty inexpensive, but they're very delicate.
Okay, Dana, do you want to tell us about your light setup?
Sure. I've actually got 4 different areas. This is my indoor tropicals, and I just have a Spider Farmer 2000 light, a fan, a humidifier, a little bit of supplemental lighting on the side. Everything runs off of TP-Link smart plugs that run through the Alexa, so I can easily set routines for them. Let the fan rest for a half an hour each day, twice a day. The humidifier has a humidistat on it that when I set it to 45 degrees, it truly keeps things right around 50 degrees or 50% humidity in here. The house, I keep at about 70, and right now under the lights, I'm at 77 degrees for the plants. I've got a few of them that are shorter plants elevated to keep the canopies at about the same level. Plants that need a little less light, like the podocarpus off to the right, I've got so that they're not directly under the light. It loses intensity a little bit as it goes. This light is good for about a 4x4 grow area. So that's the indoor tropicals. Then I should have another slide from my garage.
Hey Dana, do you keep the light at that height the whole season?
This light has a dimmer on it. I've got it running at 80% right now, and it's recommended to run it at 24 to 26 inches above the plants. So yeah, it's very easy to adjust. You can see this is another version of that light. This is the Spider Farmer 1000, which is basically one panel, but they come with these clips up top, and you can just pull them up and down like you would drapes, basically. So it's real easy to adjust the height, but I think that I'm gonna probably have this height about the same as it is right now. I'm running on a 14-hour on, 10-hour off light cycle on the tropicals from the last slide. This picture here, I wasn't quite complete at the time. I have finished this now. I've hung the thermostat where I wanted it to be, and then over the front of this cabinet, I've put Panda film, which is black on one side, white on the other. It's like a 5 mil thick reflective white material that I cut 5 strips out, and I've got them hanging basically like drapes in the front of here, so I can access it, but it will reflect the light and it will keep the temperature in. When the garage door goes up, I won't get a cold blast of air that are hitting my trees here. These ones I've actually got set just on sunset and sunrise. So these ones will go with the seasons. The Alexa has that option on your timer as well. So the days will go along with the seasons. I'm going to keep this room about 45 degrees during the day and about 40 degrees at night for the azalea, the coastal redwood, and then 3 olives that I have here. Since here I've raised up I put a different table that's a little bit taller because I wanted the olives to get a little more intense light than I wanted the redwood to get. There's a wall in between. I've got a oil-filled radiator heater. It's fairly safe to leave. I've got a tile just a ceramic tile underneath it, so it's not sitting on wood. And then I've got the fan that is circulating the air, and I purposely didn't fully seal off with the curtains. There's a little bit of air movement between in here.
Is that an LED light setup?
That is the same brand light that I have on my interior. Yeah, it's called a Spider Farmer 1000. It's a full spectrum, plus it has the red, it has the ultraviolet and the infrared. And really affordable. I mean, this is like $160 light. The one inside is about a $300 light. And it's got the Samsung LED diodes, and it's got the Meanwell driver. So it has the same components as lights that are about double the price of this one. And I find it to be a real nice construction. It's got the dimmer on top, which was a new improvement on these lights this year. It's just got a turn dial knob that when you're acclimating your plants, you can start them at 40%, bring it up to 60, bring it up to 80, which is, I'm at 70% on here, and I'll probably bring it up to 80, which I don't really know if these trees will really need that kind of light when they're basically dormant at 40 degree temperature, but it's there if they need it, and it's not going to hurt anything for them to have it. It's going to keep them watered.
Do you know if the light output of the LEDs degrades over time?
I don't believe that these ones do. I watched a bunch of videos on them, and I mean, these are the best diodes that you can get. I don't think that they degrade like a fluorescent would.
Okay.
That they will just eventually fail.
All right, cool, thank you.
There's two more areas that I'll have that aren't pictured here. In this same garage, I will have just raised about an inch off the floor. I'm going to have a Japanese maple and a dawn redwood. My garage, it shares a wall with my house, so it really doesn't ever get down below freezing anyway. Water never freezes out there. So I'll have those two trees not in here under the light. They'll just be in the other side of my garage, where it'll probably stay about 33, 35 degrees, I would guess. I've never measured it, but the water, I keep water bottles out there. It's colder, it feels like, than water in the refrigerator, but it never freezes. And I've got a glass block window. That's a little light. I don't think that they'll even, I mean, the leaves will be off of them. They won't need any light. But those are, one of them's in a giant, about 10-gallon nursery pot. And then the other one's in a real large bonsai training pot. So those two will be pretty easy to mind. And then outdoor for my junipers, my larch, my arborvitae. I have a north side wall on my house that my roof pitches east and west, so there won't be any snow, icicles, anything falling onto them. I'm going to have them up kind of against the house. I'll have stakes pounded in the ground around them with a burlap, and I'll have them mulched in and then filled in some with leaves as well. And I'm already pretty protected from the wind. I've got a fence on the west side of my house, and then the wall for my house will block. So between that and the burlap, they're not going to get any kind of wind. And I'm just going to leave it open air and let the snow fall onto it, and then water if there's no snow melting is my plan for those. So that's the 4 areas that I have planned for this winter.
That looks real nice, and happily, Alexa probably knows all about daylight savings time and making that change for you.
Yeah, it just runs right on. It just runs right on timer. It's really easy.
So that's a very clever approach. I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, like if you look at, I can go to my routines on here. You can see these are all the routines that I have set for all of my different smart plugs. So it'll be fan on, fan off, fan on, fan off, different lights on, different lights off. So everything's real automated, and I can always check my phone to make sure that everything is calibrated right. And I have the Alexa show here that I can even just drop in, and I have a video camera that I can actually view if I'm away and I'm worried about something not being right, which is overkill, but it's there if I ever need it.
It's amazing what technology will do now.
I really like this is called an Inkbird thermostat, and it's not expensive. It's a $30 thermostat off of Amazon. It's a 24-hour thermostat, so I can set a different time or a different temperature during the day and during the night. So you can vary it to mimic nature a little bit. It hangs outside of here, so if I just peek my head out the door, I don't need to look inside of here. I've got a digital thermometer that'll tell me the temperature, and it'll tell me what the heater is set for. I had mentioned the amp range. That's why I went with a 700 watt heater. First of all, this space doesn't need anything more than that. So there's not much energy consumption, not over on amperage. And I think that this is they had several different versions. You can get a Wi-Fi one that will show your phone. It has an app. I opted for, and then they have one that does heating and cooling. I did both of these plugs just run to the heater. You can set a variant. So if I'm set to 45 degrees with a 2-degree variance, it will kick on. If it gets to 43, it'll run to 45, and then it'll turn the heater off. At night, it'll run down to 38, and I can change it. I can make it a 1-degree variance, a 5-degree variance. You can change it however you want, and you can set the time on it. You know, it runs on a military time on there, and you can say at 8 o'clock in the morning, I want it to change to daytime temp. And when you view it, it'll show you, like right now, I'm above temperature. Right now, I'm reading in the 50s, but it'll say 53 degrees, and then it'll say heat will kick on at 45. So you can very easily monitor it outside of here, and I don't even need to peel the plastic back to see what's going on in there, which I like. And then I have a little secondary thermometer and humidistat in there just so I have a double check reading on everything too.
Very good.
That's my plan this year.
It looks good. Bob, do we have something else up after this?
Those are mine.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
So it says JTC Hunt under my picture. I'm John Sorosky. That's my email moniker. And I've done coal frames for the last 35 years. And the main reason being, when I started bonsai, I live in Kalamazoo, and the club here, that's what people were doing. So that's what I did. And I've had 4 of them in total. I have 3 now. And I use glass doors because we thought you needed light 35 years ago. And we know now you don't need light, but that makes the doors lighter than solid wood would. I'm showing you this view from the backside. I insulate them with mulched leaves. John Naka used to recommend oak leaf mulch for your organic component. And so I got in the habit of doing that with our oak leaves, and I just pile them up around. And this is, you're looking at the picture taken this week. So this is at the low point actually, and there'll be leaves so that you can barely see the tops of the coal frames by the time winter comes. If you go to the next picture. So the one coal frame has a tarp on it because, as you can tell, the doors don't go totally to the top, and water can drip down those boards at the top and go underneath the doors. And I just didn't like that idea. I never had a problem with it, but I didn't like it. So I put a tarp over it, and that solves that particular issue. This is the biggest one that I've made. It's about 6 feet tall from the ground up. And actually the floor goes anywhere from 18 to 22 inches below ground. You can see that there with the doors off. And notice the centerpiece between the two doors. I built them so that that can be removed. And these top pieces are going to be removed in the next picture. And a couple of things to note. The board running front to back is there to keep the walls from bowing. The weight of all the wet soil will cause a 8-foot long plywood board to slowly bow inwards. And that board keeps it from doing that. The other boards are to support the piece between the two doors and the piece that goes over the top. You see the board stacked in the back. Well, there we are with the middle piece off. I found that useful because it gives you a wider space to enter and leave with trees. You want to be sure your doorway is wide enough for your widest tree, and maybe a little wider yet because your trees tend to grow over time. And the board stacked there are for a shelf. My last two cold frames had shelves because I needed more space, and I had enough room to do that. The floor is hardware cloth, 1/2 inch. That's to keep critters from burrowing from underneath and coming up. It also helps prevent the pots from freezing to the ground. So they're kind of insulated from any moisture. My yard is entirely sand. I had to bring in topsoil when we built our house. So that's all sand underneath there. And you can see the step down at the bottom. You need that to get down those 20 inches. So there we are with the boards all arranged for the double decker. And I've not had a problem with that as far as any evidence that some trees are suffering winter damage. My smaller trees go there, the bigger ones go underneath. And again, you want to make that shelf high enough to get your bigger trees in. So the only insulation is the oak leaf mulch. You can see some of the joints between boards are sealed. This is all 3/4 inch treated plywood and 2x6, 2x4s that are treated lumber also.
What's the dimensions in that?
I'm sorry?
What's the dimension, the floor dimensions?
The floor dimension is it's 8 feet wide, 5 feet front to back. And as I said, the peak of it is 6 feet above ground level. This was all done because they were convenient sizes when you're working with 4x8 plywood.
So do you water your trees in the winter while they're in there?
I have occasionally. Usually I don't find a need to. One thing about the plexiglass is quite often throughout the winter, you'll see water beating down as when it gets cold, water condenses. And that keeps me feeling that, hey, it's humid in there. And even if the pots are getting dry, there's enough humidity that they're not going to suffer too much. When I see that there isn't any water beating, then I start worrying, and I may open up and take a peek and decide what to do. I did water last year more heavily than usual, and because I thought things got really dry, and I had some fungus issues this year. So whether that was due to that or we had a pretty mild winter last year and a lot of humidity and a lot of rain, so I really can't tell the difference. But I don't do too much watering in there.
And you don't mulch things inside there. You just rely on.
And I stack things on top of each other if I can, because I have to. There's just too many trees. So this is my deluxe model. The others are simpler. They're more basic.
Are there any trees you don't keep in here?
Only things that you're not surprised if they have a problem. for a lot of years, I put Chinese elm in there. And then I had a few years where I had some dieback. Chinese elm in there will lose all of its leaves, unlike a warmer setup. So for more sensitive things like azaleas, they go in my basement. I have a small room off the basement that has 3 cold walls. I can turn off the heat to it, and it never gets any colder than 50 degrees in there. And so that the more sensitive plants will go in there or in the garage.
What do you have that you consider more sensitive that you do not put in the cold frames?
They would be like semi-tropicals. What am I thinking of? Things that.
So I don't consider an azalea really a semi-tropical.
I don't have many anymore because we started heading south in the winter, and you know, it's not going to work having them in your garage and without any maintenance, or in the, without any watering. So I've pretty much gotten rid of most of those plants.
Hey, John, does this face north?
I'm sorry?
Does this, the glass face of this to the north?
Didn't catch the last part, Jack. I'm hearing you impaired.
North facing.
He's
It's
asking the
north-facing,
direction.
absolutely. It's got to be north facing. Yep.
Okay, I think that's an important concept here.
I'm still not understanding, Jack.
He just wants to point out that that it should be north facing. That's an important concept for people to realize.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, it does face north. We don't want it to heat up from the sun.
Yeah, Jack, we're having a lot of trouble hearing you. I don't know why it's breaking up a lot. Maybe you could try moving that microphone closer in. I don't know if it flexes or not.
Right here.
That's a little
Economical equipment.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, Jack. You break up a lot. We miss it a lot. Huh.
Well, that's a pretty nice looking cold frame, John. That I say it would be very doable again for a smaller yard.
Thank you. Listen, I found this discussion tonight fascinating. Thank you all, gentlemen. This is not mine.
Well, this is me. So this is one of my little areas. This is where I keep my outdoor plants. They have not a whole lot. And so, geez, what I figured was the best way to keep them protected was to put them inside where they're in this little corner here. This is south facing, which I don't think is a problem because they're open to the front air, and there's boards across there, and these are foundation walls, so it stays pretty warm in there. This is the second year I've done setup, and it's worked out so far pretty well. That's just where I keep my outdoor plants. I didn't even think to had a photo of my my indoors, which are here. Oh geez, that's blaring out. There we go. If you're with me. So those are under LED lights, and I have some in the front window. Yeah, my collection's pretty small and kind of broken up like that.
That looks pretty good. I like that where you have them protected. They're protected against the wind, and that's always a big issue. And lots of mulch, which is real good. But I know if you don't protect them against the wind, you get a lot of drying out, and that looks pretty good.
I know the foundation wall thing is very effective. I've had tropical plants that were tubers that I didn't lift in the fall that came back the next year because it stayed warm enough next to the foundation.
Are you using mulch or just leaves there?
Yeah, they just look like leaves to me. I'm not sure what Justin's using. In mentioning that mulch, I tried a cedar mulch once, and boy, I got all kinds of this fungi growing in it, this white stuff, great for pines and stuff. But it really made a mess, and so I don't use a cedar mulch anymore, or pine needles or anything like that, because it gets too much fungi there. Maybe it's just not enough air circulating within the mulch itself.
What would you recommend to use in my outdoor area that I'm gonna, encase in burlap? I was thinking about a pine bark mulch and then finish it off, up to the top of the pots and then put some leaves above the trees. Do you think that's a good plan?
Well, I don't think you should put anything up above the trees. You just need to protect the pot. The trees still are going to need air moving through them and stuff, but your pot definitely needs mulch.
What kind of mulch? You said that the cedar was a problem. Pine bark mulch?
Peat
Yeah, I
works.
haven't tried pine bark or whatever. I just know the cedar was a problem.
Yeah, peat works pretty well if you get it moist, once you've got it moist, it'll stay moist pretty well. And I've not had issues with fungus or anything. It's pretty sterile.
Hey, Justin.
Ozzy from Flower Market is the one that recommended topping off with some leaves to bring up above where the mulch layer was. So I was considering doing that, but I was also concerned with airflow.
Yeah, I'm not sure. What do you mean on how far you're bringing the leaves up? You're bringing it into where the branches are and different things? Because you really don't need to. You don't need to protect the
You're
branches.
protecting the roots, right? Yeah, I understand. That was just a recommendation. And maybe I'll ask him to clear that up for me. Because that's what he told me, was just to mulch up to the top of your pots. And then if you've got the burlap around, to fill it up with some leaves just to further insulate.
I know people who have buried plants like this in leaves, and the next spring, every square millimeter of bark was gone because the mice hid in the leaves and ate all the bark off. So you got to fence the mice out if you're going to do that, the mice and the voles.
Mm-hmm.
In my case,
yeah, I would be afraid of the different junipers and pines. Any of those that get covered up with mulch would be a problem. Maybe you get some die off where they're buried in the leaves.
I think the big issue is to protect them from the wind, and your burlap will take you quite a ways in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the main thing to be concerned about.
Protect from the wind and the sun.
Yeah, luckily I'm on the north side, so it's always in shade.
Oh,
So I won't have too much temperature variance on the side that I'm on.
That's great. That's just what you want.
In my case, I also just bury my trees. I bury the pots directly in the dirt next to the foundation of my house on the north side. And I've never used any mulch or leaves. In fact, I rake the leaves out so it's easier for me to dig the trees in when I put them in place. And I've only had a problem so far over the past 7-8 years with one very small tree getting girdled in that time.
I need that.
One of the easy ways I'm just going to comment on covering things. One of the easy ways to cover up small trees, regardless of how you treat the pots and whatnot, is to get some bushel baskets, turn them upside down, and it protects from the wind and heavy snow loads and all that kind of stuff. I've used it for 30 years now on all my tender plants, not necessarily bonsai, but azaleas and rhododendrons, things that are marginally hardy, that are very, very dwarf. Also, some of my dwarf and unusual conifers that are like maybe the size of basketballs or a little better, but they're 30 to 40 years old.
That's a pretty cool idea. Do you have a good source for lots of bushel baskets?
Well, I love to scrounge through the resale shops and whatnot, but a new bushel basket is not that expensive. The other thing you can use is woven trash bags or trash containers. I've got a couple of them underneath my desk that I use just to throw stuff in. And the nice part about that is it allows air circulation, which I think is one of the best things that I have found in the last 40 years for anything, whether it's deciduous or coniferous, that allows the air circulation in there, but protects it from wind and sun, because those are the two most debilitating things we found.
I like that idea.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Right now at two farm stores here, we're in Chelsea. There's two farm stores. They've got stacks of bushel baskets. I think they're between $4 and $5 a piece. It also is simple because you can take those little U-shaped metal things, bend out, if the bushel basket's got the handles, bend out the handles and just plug them in. And then I set a brick or a small rock or something on top of it also to prevent the thing from blowing around. And I can do 20, 30 plants in a couple hours that way.
That's ingenious. That's great.
All right, this is Chris, and I'll get going on mine. I'm pretty sophomoric compared to most of the setups that you guys have had. But what I have is I have 3 different pictures. This one is really where I'm going to try putting the tropicals this year. This is a 4-season room that we have attached to the back of our house. It faces, this corner is southwest. You can see I have bougainvilleas, a fringe flower, a Barbados cherry, and I was trying one of those little lotuses that I got from Kurt. Although I just brought that in the house because it's not looking so good. So, so anyways, yeah. So,
to order carry out.
so I've got these. I'm gonna try these.
Somebody mute Dana.
Oh, sorry. I'm not.
So, okay, so the next one is, this is inside my garage. We have an attached garage. It doesn't get much below like 40 degrees. So this is where I'm gonna do the azaleas to the left and the redwood seedlings and a sequoia. And I don't know, last year I had pretty good luck with the azaleas. I know, Jack, you said that azaleas can handle it pretty cold, or they can be inside the house. But from what I've been told from Kurt, they'd really want to get down into like, let's say mid 30s, 40 degrees. So that's why I have them out here in the garage. There is some light with the glass block window, but I don't put any light to these. I figure they're semi-dormants. And then the last slide is where I've kept my outdoor trees. This is walking up to our front door, obviously. And this is the side of the garage. It's a northeast facing. And what I do is, obviously I cut back all these hot lips, flowers, but I bury them in the mulch and put them along the north side of the garage, all lined up along here. And we have pretty good size overhangs, so we don't get snow and ice falling directly on top of them, but I do scoop when I shovel off the sidewalk. If I haven't salted it, I shovel the snow on top of the trees. And I've had really good luck with this, knock on wood. I've had good luck with my trees surviving this way, not burlapping or just being in this northeast corner of the house along the foundation. And I found that my deciduous and larches have done really well this way. So yeah, I don't go to any extraordinary measures to protect my trees, but that's where I've had pretty good luck with them. Any questions?
Chris, it sounds like it's one of those, if it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. Last year I did have the redwoods, sequoia, and the azaleas in the Four Seasons room from the first picture. But what I found is my azaleas didn't really bloom that well this year. And I was told that azaleas really kind of want some winterization, like 6 to 8 weeks. So I'm trying the garage again this year. And last year, I think they also didn't bloom well because they got caught in that snowstorm while we were away at Halloween. So yeah, it was a sneaky snowstorm last year.
It was. Very good.
I think that's the end.
All righty. Well, thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much, everybody that put this on. This is really good. Appreciate all the information. We all picked up a lot of pointers, I think.
I had a general question. Do you all use antifungal and insecticide preventively over the course of the winter?
I don't.
I don't either.
Okay.
I spray the ones that are coming inside with usually pyrethrin or permethrin spray, or sometimes just a neem oil, because I have real problems with pests indoors on my tropicals, mostly scale. Other than that, no.
Okay.
Let me ask your opinion. This juniper that I've been gifted is in a standard plastic pot, nursery landscape pot, and it won't be put into a bonsai pot until next April at the earliest, when it gets trimmed up and everything. I'm thinking now, after listening to all this, of putting it in my garage for the winter. I have north-facing windows in the garage, and it never gets below 32 in that garage. I think wintering it there would be a good idea. What do you guys think?
Well, the only thing I have seen in the past is people putting their trees in the garages and they tend to dry out. And that's
Why keep it watered?
Yeah, the only thing you have to do is make sure that it stays watered. So.
If people are interested, I saw one other wintering setup that I haven't really seen represented here. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, I had, well, maybe 3 years ago, I was able to visit Dean Bull up in the Traverse City area. And his wintering setup, he has a shed. It's probably like about 6 by 10. And he dug a pit in the floor of the shed, going down about 4 feet. Filled it with stone, and then he insulated the inside of the shed. So the shed maintains the ground temperature. And he just puts all his trees in there. He can just set them down right on the stones on the ground. And the temperature stays fairly consistent for him. It's a different way to do it that I hadn't seen before.
Did he give you any rationale as to why you put all the stone down there, other than maybe drainage?
I think he was trying to do like a geothermal thing.
That's right.
Because
So
they went deep enough to maintain like 45 degrees in the ground, and that would keep the shed about that if the shed was insulated and enclosed.
the stone allows that warmth to come up because otherwise, because there's air gaps there.
Yeah, I would think just the soil temperature would stay pretty constant all by itself. But I don't know. It would be interesting to explore that a little further.
Yeah, I'd like to see a temperature range within that stone to see if it's actually moving upward.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting idea, Don. So
I agree with what you. I was gonna say I agree with what you said, Mark. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you find something that works well, stick with it. Otherwise, don't be afraid to try something new. But yeah, sometimes I find that people get highly elaborate with their setups, and it's not always necessary. I think it keeps some people out of bonsai because they think that you have to be super elaborate with your setup, and you don't necessarily have to be.
But
Yeah,
I think
I would have to agree.
a lot of that would have to be with what tree you have. You said, gee, you have certain things that you did and you lost one tree. If the one tree I lost, I had paid $1,000 for, I would have wished I had a greenhouse for it in the long run.
Yeah, I think, Chris, I would say that what we've seen certainly this evening is that there's a lot of different ways you can do it that seem to work pretty well for people. So yeah, if what you're doing is working for you, certainly get some ideas from and I've definitely gotten some ideas from people this evening. But there's not just one single way to do it right, I think is what we see.
That's a good takeaway, Jay. There are a lot of different ways to approach it, and I think we've all had a lot of successes, maybe a few failures, and we learned a lot tonight. I think if there aren't any more closing comments, we'll wrap it up, and don't forget to set your clocks back.
Quick question. Was there a decision made about what's going to happen for November, December?
So normally October is our last meeting, and we don't meet November through January, and our first meeting would be in February. So as of now, there's no plan for anything in November, December. We're looking at the possibility of having Andrew do a presentation in January. And so we'll let people know if that is going to happen.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we're not sure when we can get in Math-I, but we're going to stay with Zoom meetings until further notice, because Math-I know is going to be shut down at least till summertime, early summer, if not later.
Yeah, have you heard definitively on that, Ron? I know that's kind of what I've been expecting to hear.
I haven't seen anything in writing other than through January, but lately talking to Carmen, it's going into March.
Okay, because I had tentatively lined up basically this year's programs for next year, assuming that we could, get into Math I. And of course, as we're getting closer to it, it looks more and more like that may not be a possibility. So, so I think, some of those things may be able to be done on Zoom and some of them may not. So we're just going to have to kind of see how it goes.
Yeah, I would not count on anything before June or July at the very earliest. The latest thing I saw on the news said even the government might give the states the right to do a full shutdown if they want. Now, I'm not talking government like Trump. I'm talking about the people that overwatch the COVID, that they think it's going to be terribly serious, and it is already. And we are going to have to start shutting down, even if it's just every night at 6 o'clock, we shut down. We shut all the bars, we shut all the places where people gather. And that's going to continue till next year, late next year.
It's certainly going to make life challenging for groups, but I think that with this Zoom program and speakers who are able to do that, we've hit on a formula which will get us through until we can have real meetings again. So
Yeah,
we'll look forward to that in January.
We would welcome any one of you who are on here, or any member who wishes to even have a discussion. Say you want to run a discussion with our club and you want to talk about a particular topic. If you want to give a talk about it and get discussion about it, it does not have to be, a particular doesn't have to be a particular meeting time. It could be just about any day you want to do it. You volunteer to do it, you could run a meeting. It's easy to do it on Zoom. We just post membership saying, hey, on this day, so-and-so is going to do a talk on this, and we'd like to do some discussions. Anybody who's interested in it, log on. And as a club, we can easily post memberships with your ideas or what you're suggesting you'd like to do.
That's a good point. Good suggestion, Ron.
Yeah, and some of those meetings that may not work out, with our presenters for Zoom meetings might turn into roundtables, and we would just choose a topic and have members discuss it. So, as we did tonight, that's pretty much what we were doing tonight.
The other question I had is, are there any members who might, let's say, open their garden for visitation or something like that, since we may be not allowed to go to Hidden Lake or Math High?
Well, we had considered that even this summer, but it's still getting too many people together from different areas. There's a lot of people still going to work and stuff, and we're kind of worried about those people being exposed and exposing to us, because you can be a carrier without being sick yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. We just attended one that was held at a big nursery. And I think there was 30 or 40 people that came, and it was out in South Lyon, and it's for North American Rock Garden. And it went very well.
And we would just have to, be very careful about masks and distancing and that sort of thing. So, that might be something we could look into, but that would be up to obviously members if they wanted to make that happen.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that the club would want to be responsible for getting people together for something like that. I know I would not want to bring 20 or 15 or 20 people to my house and then have them go away and find out they got sick or something.
Yeah, I can agree. I'm just wondering if there's any individuals that seems like there's an awful lot of people who have a good collection of bonsai.
Well, Charlene, I think what might be a doable way to incorporate that idea and at the same time recognize the concerns that Ron is talking about would be for people, for instance, like Becky and I, to have an invitation for a couple people at a time to visit, where we don't have to worry about social distancing because we're going to be 6-10 feet apart and you'll be outdoors. We won't be in a crowded room. And so maybe we could work out a way for people who would be willing to host a visit for a couple folks at a time to make those contacts and set that up next year.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, another possibility would be to have virtual garden tours where people could, either using a Facebook Live or something, or just photographs on Zoom, walk people through their collections. And it's not as good as being there in person, but better than nothing at all.
That would be ideal, and it'd be easy if it was set up on Facebook or in some other format. Because this is the first time I've seen more of you to get some ideas of what you had. And Wade and I were down to Kurt's the other weekend, and it was a great experience to be able to wander around.
Some things to think about over the winter. They're good ideas.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm thinking, unless there's anything else critical to tell the group, that it's just about 9 o'clock and approaching my bedtime.
Get out and vote.
Already took care of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the time.
Good night, all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Happy
everybody.
Halloween.
Night, everybody.
Thanks.
Everybody stay safe.